Hello everyone, welcome back to the LSI Watchalongs. Welcome to the British Grand Prix. We're finally here, sorry for the delay. We start with the first session of the Silverstone event. Clearly my favourite Grand Prix of the year. And many others as well. It is one hell of a circuit. One hell of a circuit means one hell of a upgrade package for a few teams. New floor for McLaren, who dominated in Austria but still continue to push. Red Bull also on a new floor, and Haas as well. Mercedes and Ferrari, they brought upgrades in Austria, so they haven't done floor upgrades. I'm not sure if they've done some minor tweaks. They probably have, because Silverstone is a circuit that you kind of have to do upgrades at, otherwise you're going to miss out massively. It's a very balanced circuit. It's got high speed, it's got low speed. It's a brilliant race circuit. It means that there has to be changes, especially compared to where they last raced in Austria. Now, something that is to be talked about a little bit this weekend, and there's going to be a lot of talk about it throughout, so you can't escape it, but Lewis Hamilton has, I think, an 11 race streak of getting a podium here at Silverstone. 9 race wins in their career, but 11 podium streak. That's from 2014. They had, well, 2013 they last didn't finish on the podium. So 2014 they did. Will Hamilton get their first podium here? A Grand Prix podium for Ferrari, as it just seems to be a circuit that they're incredibly good at. I think it is their most successful circuit of their career as well. It might be a joint with another circuit, maybe Hungary. I'm just going to double check that. But other than that, yeah. What about having your home Grand Prix as your most successful Grand Prix? That is crazy. And it will be Lewis Hamilton with 8 wins at Hungary, so 9 wins at Silverstone. Absolutely insane. Jim Clark, Alan Prost, 5 wins. Looking at current drivers, Fernando Alonso has 2 wins, 2006 and 2011. That is it for the current drivers on having repeat victories around here. Realistically, Max Verstappen has had 2 wins around Silverstone, but one was the 50th anniversary Grand Prix, so it doesn't actually count as the British Grand Prix, but it is around Silverstone. 18 wins here for Ferrari as a constructor, McLaren 14, Mercedes 10, Williams 10, Red Bull 4. And then looking at the engine manufacturers, Ferrari 18, Mercedes 15, and it's Renault with 12. Renault, of course, disappearing next year. They will not return to Formula One for the foreseeable future, as Mercedes will take over the Alpine's power unit. We'll see how that one goes. With the new regulations, it's going to be very interesting to see. Just looking at the win record from previous years, Lewis Hamilton, of course, won in 2024, 23 for Verstappen. Carlos Sainz took his maiden victory in 2022, and in 2021, 2020, 2019, all Lewis Hamilton. Vettel won in 2018. Hamilton then went on to win the German Grand Prix, so they traded their home Grand Prix for each other. And then it was 2017, 16, 15, 14, all for Lewis Hamilton, until 2013, when Nico Rosberg won that one. Another Mercedes driver took the victory there. Anyway, enough about that, and we're going to have a look at the current timings and the current drivers that we've got on the grid right now. Russell topping the times, a 27.9. Norris in P2 with a 27.9 as well, very close to one another. We've got a little further away Antonelli in P3, Hamilton, Piastri, Verstappen, Hadjar, Alonso, Stroll, Gasly, Bortoleto, Behrman, Lawson, Colapinto, Lindblad in 15th in place of Sonoda, and then it is Paul Aaron in place of Nico Hulkenberg. We've got Albon in 17th, then we've got Sainz, Leclerc and Esteban Ocon. That is the order. Two junior drivers, two rookie drivers in the FP1 session. That's Lindblad, of course, for Red Bull, and that's Aaron for Sauber, the Estonian driver. I don't believe racing in Formula 1. Formula 2, sorry, at the moment. But they definitely proved what they could do, leading the championship for a fair part of it at the beginning. And interesting, looking at the votes for who will be the fastest at the British Grand Prix, McLaren only 67%, 2 votes out of the 3, 1 vote for Mercedes. Will that be the case? I'm not entirely convinced. It's not impossible. It is a circuit that favours the Mercedes car a little bit more than others at least, so it could be that is the case. But we'll have to find out at a later point. Gasly having a massive spin on the exit of Copse Corner over the curb. That's absolutely huge from Pierre Gasly to keep it on the circuit, spinning at Copse Corner, not going into the gravel trap. Very, very, very good job to keep that one at the wall, but I kind of want to say good skill, but at the same time, I feel like that was kind of just hope, just pray that something goes right, and for them it did go right. But will somebody else find the wall at Copse Corner, or go off at Copse Corner and have a little bit of a worse time? We've saw Verstappen, and I think Perez go off at Copse Corner last year into the gravel, both of them, I believe, and they got out pretty quickly. Well, at least I don't think Perez did. I think Verstappen did in the wet conditions, unless that was in qualifying. I'm not entirely sure at the moment. So currently, Bortoleto P10, rookie driver, halfway through their first F1 season. They've got a few races under their belt. They're currently a decent margin ahead of Paul Aaron. We've got Verstappen in P6 and Lindblad in P13. Medium tyres for both drivers. Aaron and Bortoleto, medium tyres for both drivers as well. Just looking at the comparisons with one another. Right now, although we're only on 43 minutes left of the session, Lindblad's doing a pretty good job in that Red Bull car. And there's going to be a few drivers who are going to be a little bit worried about their future at Red Bull. Of course, Lindblad has been given their super license, and that's not for no reason from Red Bull. They pushed for the super license for Arvid Lindblad. Lindblad now gets to practice in some FP1 sessions. Would they get into the car before the end of the season? Well, would we see Hadjar go to Red Bull? That's the question. We've already seen Lawson try and give that Red Bull car a crack. We've seen Sonoda do it. We know that Hadjar says he's not ready and he doesn't want to do it, but if he was called up, he would do it. He's curious, he said. He's curious to see what is so difficult about that Red Bull car to drive, and can he get on top of it. We know that they're good drivers, all three of them. It's just that car is a bit of a monster to drive. Would Hadjar be able to handle it? Would Lindblad be able to handle it? Come straight into that Red Bull seat. Well, Hadjar's probably going to have something to say because they don't want to just miss out on the senior team because they aren't ready. You know, that would be absolutely ridiculous. So we'll see. We'll have to see how it goes. But of course, if Lindblad does come in, that means one of the Red Bull drivers will leave. And that could mean that Yuki Tsunoda would find themselves out of Formula One. Would Tsunoda be able to come back in for Cadillac? Possibly. It would be an option. A driver that's just come out of F1 very recently, half a season ago, to go into a new team. It might be worth it. Driving since 2021, so they've got a few years under their belt right now. And of course, two different teams as well. Similar, but different. So there are a few things that we need to talk about, really. Some that I've missed so far, some that are pretty dramatic. It's, of course, George Russell and Max Verstappen. No, not battling out on track, not crashing into each other. It's more about the seat scenario. Will George Russell be staying at Mercedes? Will Max Verstappen be making the move over from Red Bull to Mercedes? Well, first of all, we don't know where George Russell would go if they were to leave Mercedes. Would there be a direct swap with Red Bull? Well, Max Verstappen, they seem to want to stay at Mercedes, at Red Bull, sorry. They seem to want to stay at Red Bull. That's what the comments are saying, or looking like from them. But they're also not commenting on not going to Mercedes. Mercedes haven't signed that contract with George Russell right now, which is a little bit of a strange one to not already have it done, considering the amazing performances that Russell's been putting in. Sure, Austria was a little bit down in the dumps, but Canada, they took the race victory over Verstappen. But unfortunately, when you've got a four-time world champion who's possibly going to be taking your seat, you can't really do much about that one. And they've just got to do whatever the team suggests. George Russell says he doesn't think he'll be going anywhere, but Toto Wolff will do what's best for the team, so whatever happens, happens. It all feels like Mercedes want to get Verstappen in and there's a chance. It feels like Verstappen is willing to move if his team and his driver team thinks fit. But otherwise, I think they're going to try and do everything they can to stay at Red Bull as long as Red Bull has promise. Now, coming away from that, we're going to go back to the timings. Hadjar's just improved, Leclerc's improved, Lawson's improved, Piastri's improved. Lots of cars have just improved. It's now Hadjar with 27.502 as their best time. No purple sectors. Purple sector in the final sector for Charles Leclerc, and then it's Liam Lawson in P3. Middle purple sector for Piastri. And then Russell in P5. So the top five are all within 0.2 of each other right now. Very close stuff. Very early stages. Can't say too much at the moment. Got Lindblad in P16, Aaron in P15, Bortoleto P10 and Verstappen in P9. So currently, Bortoleto and Verstappen very close. Aaron, Lindblad, very close as well. Interesting stuff to see. Verstappen is about 2.5 tenths almost ahead though. So the gaps are slightly further apart. Just want to talk about Williams for a second. Williams need to hope for a good result. Their home Grand Prix. It was a comment from Freddie Flintoff, the former cricketer for England, who said, oh no, it was actually not that, it was Damon Hill. You can't get a more British team than Williams. And I think that is pretty much exactly right. They need to try and have a good result here at their home Grand Prix. It would be such a shame to miss out like they did in Austria. A double DNF before the race even started for Carlos Sainz. And then later on into the Grand Prix for Alex Albon. And it seems to be cooling that's the issue. Also for the Mercedes car, and I think it's just Mercedes engine cars cooling seems to be the issue. Well, there's going to be a new regulation change, so everything could possibly change in the future years. We'll see how that one turns out, won't we? If my comments are going to be completely overturned. But right now they've got to focus on the now. And they do seem to be confident that they can have a good race here. They say that the corners that they struggle at most are, I think, are really long high-speed corners. And they say that they've got high-speed corners around here in Silverstone, but they're not massively long. They actually are quite quick. You'd get through them quite fast. So the Williams should have a little bit more performance around this circuit. So that's Mercedes and Williams both hoping to go faster than previous races, previous rounds in the championship. It's Ferrari who are also looking to try and be on the up. Charles Leclerc qualifying P2 on the grid in the end for the Austrian Grand Prix. They missed out on the exit of turn 1 as Oscar Piastri jumped them pretty quickly. But it was expected, as those McLarens were incredibly fast. Still doesn't mean that Charles Leclerc can't go for another podium. Currently sitting P2. Hamilton, though, the podium master around Silverstone, looking to try and do a similar thing. Don't believe Ferrari have any upgrades. Don't believe Mercedes have any either. There may be a few changes. Haas do have a new floor as well, so they're looking to try and do something about their performance. I will say, they've had a brilliant race car underneath them. Just the qualifying car makes it difficult for them to utilise their performance later on in the Grand Prix. That's with Ocon doing some incredible hard stints over the last couple of Grand Prix to get them up the order. Now, which is completely different compared to what we saw a couple of years ago, that the Haas just seemed to be an amazing qualifying car, 2022 I think it was, and then it just dropped back in the race. We saw Kevin Magnussen qualify on pole for, I believe it was the sprint race for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Obviously that was very situational, but it still showed how good that Haas could be, how you could get that lap time in. But then the race pace just dropped away, the tyres were eaten. Now it's a very different story, and there just doesn't seem to be as much pace in the car when it comes to the one lap pace. We'll say just watching the Sauber car right now of Paul Aron going across the line. We haven't really thought much about Sauber and their position in Formula One. They're going to be moving to Audi next year, and I don't think Sauber will have any involvement. I think they were going to, and then Audi went and bought 100%. I need to fact check this a little bit later on, but realistically, this could be the final year that we see the Sauber name in Formula One, at least for a long time. Sauber is going to be going on to different things. They do a lot of wheelchair designs for Olympians, Paralympians, as you would want to have if you were a sportsman or a sportswoman or a sports anything in that area. So they will not be completely away from the performance world, but from Formula One, I believe they will be disappearing, which is a shame. They've been with us for a long time and they've left us a few times. They've come back, all a bit of a mix. But the journey eventually will come to an end, I guess you could say. Looking at the timings, halfway through the session, Hadjar 21.5 still holding that as they are leaving the pit lane on a fresh set of soft tyres. Leclerc is in P2 at the moment, and we've got Verstappen, who's recently just come up to P3. They're on fresh soft tyres. Lawson, Piastri, Russell, Norris, Hamilton, Antonelli, Bortoletto, Olapinto in P11. Then it's Behrman, Stroll, Alonso, Aaron, Ocon, Lindblad, Gasly, Albon and Sainz, the two British cars at the back of the pack in 19th and 20th on the hard tyre. As we see a few teams though running the soft tyres, we could see these guys go a little bit quicker. So Carlos Sainz actually, I believe, has had maybe a lap time deleted, if I'm reading this correctly. Did they go off and that's why they're not out right now setting more laps? Doesn't say that anyone had a lap deleted, so they just weren't able to set a quick lap because they must have had some sort of issue. That's just happened complaining on the radio about, I think, low speed and whatever is wrong with the car. Now, who's going to take victory here in Silverstone? Well, with Lando Norris being in that McLaren, they should have a very good chance at winning their home Grand Prix. But I'll be honest, we saw Lando Norris take victory in Australia, which was Oscar Piastri's home Grand Prix. So surely Oscar Piastri should take victory in Silverstone. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, right? It's gonna happen. I'm not entirely so certain. I feel like Lando Norris will have a great atmosphere behind them. They'll have a lot of pressure, and probably the most pressure they'll have ever had in Formula One to win their home Grand Prix. It's their best chance to do it, and you never know if you're going to get another. They have gone very well around here in the past as well, so I think they've mostly, if not every single time, had the upper hand on Oscar Piastri around this circuit. You could say that about a few other circuits as well until this season. So the championship leader, the Aussie driver, could make a bit of a turnaround and give it a good shot. It could possibly happen. Norris trying to compete for the victory effectively in the last 2 years, as McLaren had their upgrade package in Silverstone and they were very competitive, but they missed out in the end. P2 and 4, I think, with Norris and Piastri. And then in 2024, Norris qualifying within the top 3, first ever British 1, 2, 3 in qualifying, and tried to give it a shot, but in the end it just didn't work out. I think the pit stops were pretty abysmal, especially for Oscar Piastri, who dropped all the way down the order as they tried to stay out. I think Lando Norris was directly behind Oscar Piastri as Piastri came into the pit lane for their tyres, and Lando had already pitted at that point. That's how bad the strategy call was. But it looks like it's going to be a bit more of a dry and straightforward weekend this weekend. That being said, you can never, ever count out the strategy around Silverstone because of the tyres. Absolutely brutal this circuit is on the tyres. Just looking at the weather, we're getting about... for Saturday, we're getting about 20% chance of rain. So, not impossible that we could have a wet qualifying. And it's still not impossible to have a wet race, but it's very unlikely. I'd be incredibly surprised if that was to happen. The best chance of rain is tomorrow for qualifying and practice, but that's about it. And I don't think we can get too excited about any wet conditions, even though it's usually brilliant around Silverstone when that does happen. Right now, it's incredibly hot, and it's probably going to stay that way. When I say incredibly hot, it's not actually that hot. 22 degrees right now, air temperature in Northamptonshire, Silverstone. That's Charles Leclerc, who has recently gone fastest, ahead of George Russell, who set a purple middle sector. As I said, all these soft tyres were thrown onto the cars. Just over half a tenth away is Charles Leclerc right now. Piastri and then Norris following behind Lawson, Verstappen, Hadjar, Alonso, Antonelli, and Colin Pinto in the top 10, well ahead of Gasly, who had that spin at Copse Corner earlier on, just about avoided the barrier in the end. But very close to ending up worse. We had Charles Leclerc, who moved out the way for one of the Mercedes. I think it was George Russell, but still managed to distract them a little bit. That's Alex Albon, who was going through Copse Corner at full speed and ended up having Paul Aaron directly on the apex of the corner. So that was a lap immediately backed out of. Aaron trying to get used to the traffic in Formula 1. Says it was their bad. Also reported that somebody else blocked somebody else as well. Just making sure everybody knows that they're not the only one doing any impeding in practice. After watching many practice sessions, it always seems to be that it always happens in practice. You never You never see, you rarely see issues in qualifying and the race for impeding. You mostly see it in the practice sessions. Just a quick report. We've got Gabriel Bortoleto, who's also had a spin at Copse Corner and got away with it. A cheeky 360, I think. And then carrying on, we're going to try and get an idea of what actually happened. Into Copse Corner. And on the exit, spinning exactly like Gasly. This time onto the grass slightly. And then facing the correct way on the circuit and carrying on. Tyres, though, are done. Bortoleto expected to come straight into the pit lane after being on fresh soft tyres. All good for Bortoleto car-wise, but tyre-wise, they've just ruined a set of tyres. Those will be flat-spotted. Unless they can scrape some rubber off the rest of the tyre and use it for FP2, I don't know what's legal. But, yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. They miss out on that immediate performance with that qualifying tyre, and they'll have to wait a little bit later to go again. So we won't get to see the full pace of Bortoleto right now. Still currently setting their best laps on the medium tyres, and they're about 4/10 ahead of their teammate right now, Paul Aaron, the FP1 rookie, who has realistically set a pretty decent lap time compared to their teammate. Obviously, we know that Hulkenberg usually has got the better of Bortoleto so far this season, especially in qualifying. Hulkenberg, qualifying master. Taking pole position in the 2010 Brazilian Grand Prix. I believe it was the 2010 Grand Prix. Was it 2009? I don't think he raced in 2009. I think it was 2010. That was for Williams. Just proves that they can be very, very quick. Now, looking at the order now, it's Norris and Piastri who have found the pace. Hamilton's taken it away immediately as we're talking about it. No purple sector for the Brit. No purple sector at all. 2/10 down in that final sector on the McLarens effectively. And a little bit down on Lando Norris in the middle, but faster in the first sector, although not PBing, which is interesting. Just linking it all together for Lewis Hamilton has been enough to put them on the top step of the timing sheets for FP1, 18 minutes on the clock. 26.8 is the lap time that they've set, and we're going to have a look at the results from the FP1 session from 2024. It was a 27.420 for Lando Norris, who went fastest, and that is currently that would be where Lawson is effectively. So currently Antonelli is faster than the FP1 time of last year. FP2, where did we end up going fastest? So 26.5. So almost to the top time of the FP2 session for Lewis Hamilton. Qualifying, well, that ended up being definitely much quicker. We saw Q3 being a 25.8 for George Russell. So 25.8, absolutely monumental. I think it must have been raining in Q1, if I remember. Qualifying on pole position for George Russell, 1-2 for Mercedes. That was a 25.8 for pole position, so we've still got a long way to go. About a second to get to George Russell's pole time from last year. Now, just going to have a quick look at Paul Aaron's situation at the moment. Regarding their career, 2025, they are just a reserve and test driver in Formula 1. No F2 campaign for them this year, racing in F2 for 2 races in 2023, doing the full season in 2024, and they finished 3rd in that championship. Formula E, they also raced 2 races and finished 27th in the end. No points, no wins, no podiums, no fastest laps for them in that season, but at least getting some good practice. It was Bortoleto and Hadjar, who've both been promoted to Formula 1, who beat Aaron in the end. Behind them, Maloney, Crawford, Antonelli, Martins, Vashaw, Colapinto and Antonelli also in Formula 1, Oliver Behrman in P12 for the end of the championship, but effectively after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix already secured their seat in Formula 1 realistically. And Antonelli was promised to go to Formula 1 anyway as well, so Hadjar Bortoleto got promoted on outright performance with a brilliant battle. Paul Aaron, 163 points away in the end, taking 1 victory towards the end of the season in Qatar. But they got into the lead of the championship in the early stages due to some incredible consistency. And that's kind of quite good for Formula 1. They didn't get those wins though. It was Bortoleto who got 2 wins in their F2 campaign. We saw Hadjar get 4 wins in their F2 campaign. And actually Hadjar only ever took feature race wins, more points for them. A feature race win twice for Bortoleto as well. Paul Aaron taking a feature race run in Qatar. Sprint race wins for some others, probably a bit further down. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And Paul Aaron, definitely a close contender for a while. They did find themselves disqualified for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix sprint race, but they ended up in the feature race not scoring any points, so they've lost out a lot for that in the end on the championship. A P2 for Bortoleto on both the sprint and the feature, so they gained a lot of points there. So Paul Aaron, definitely quick. Formula 1 worthy? Maybe, and they're trying to prove themselves right now. Currently 13 minutes on the clock. We've got Hamilton leading the way. It's a British 1-2 with Norris in P2, very close behind. We've got Piastri in P3, we've got Leclerc, Russell, Hadjar, Albon, Lawson, Antonelli, Verstappen in P10, and we've got Alonso, Stroll, Ocon, Colapinto, Behrman, Aaron, Gasly, Bortoleto, Lindblad, and Carlos Sainz. Alex Albon showing what the Williams can do. Carlos Sainz currently improving, still on that hard tyre though. Albon's put on some fresh soft tyres. We see Aaron actually ahead of Bortoleto. Bortoleto didn't get their run on that soft tyre after spinning, flat spotting, but still staying out of the wall at Copse Corner just a few moments ago. So maybe that's why Aaron has been able to outperform Bortoleto so far. That's Lindblad who goes to P13. I was going to say they're well behind Max Verstappen, and they are the slower of the rookie drivers. Well, Aaron's just promoted themselves ahead of Behrman. It's a 1.2 second gap to Lewis Hamilton, and it's also a little bit of a gap ahead of Bortoleto. Not massive, but a little bit so far. Remember, Bortoleto has missed out on their soft tyre running, where Paul Aaron hasn't done so. We've seen soft tyre running from both Verstappen and Lindblad, and that's currently Verstappen P10 with a 27.4. It's a 27.9 for Lindblad up in 13th. So very impressive right now from Lindblad, but also Aaron as well. You really compare yourself to your teammate realistically, when you get into this scenario. Bortoleto is a rookie, but they've had a fair few races under their belt now in Formula 1, so they do need to make sure that they do beat an FP1 driver. Right now, they've got a few minutes to do it, and they also have got that kind of little caveat of not being able to set their faster run. But ultimately, you've got to try and set that faster run, and they haven't done so. So it's a bit of a difficult one, bit of an interesting one for Bortoleto right now. Carlos Sainz has improved on their last lap. However, not any further ahead of anybody else. 1.4 seconds away from Bortoleto on those very old, hard tyres. Sat in the garage for a while as well. They haven't really explored much more on anything else. Or they haven't. They've stayed on this hard tyre so far. And they continue to do such a thing. Albon 4 tenths away from the top time, whereas Carlos Sainz is all the way at the back, so there's a bit to explore. Sainz in the pit lane at the moment with 10 minutes on the clock. Will they put on that fresh set of soft tyres and show us what we want to see? Some quick laps in FP1. There's nothing quite like it, is there? Got Lewis Hamilton into the first corner. As they're going around once again, they're on some scrub soft tyres, so most likely not looking to improve, but they're still using all of the circuit around them. Losing the car a little bit on turn 4 as they go through 5 DRS open. Not open, actually. Doing a bit more of a race run, it seems, potentially. Even on a soft tyre. It shows that these drivers are considering it. Hopefully we don't see any crazy punctures like we did in, I think it was 2013, but also in 2020. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit more of a straightforward race. Higher wise, at least still for puncture territory. If we can still get some grip differences, that would be great, because then we can see a brilliant battle, not only out on track but also from the teams on the pit wall. That's always a fun one to watch. And Hamilton completes the lap as they go through the final few corners, and we'll see what their pace is looking like here compared to their previous. A 26.892 is their fastest lap, and they don't beat their lap, of course. The 31.570 was their lap in the end there. Is talking about how it's going to be very, very difficult for the mid-pack this weekend, as the raceability of this circuit is so good that you end up getting some side-by-side moments, and the midfield end up being involved in the wars, that's for sure. Carlos Sainz, soft tyre run. Let's see what they can do as they go across the line. The Spaniard finally gets something done with a different tyre. P14 is all they can achieve in the end behind their teammate, and they are effectively 6 tenths away. So Alex Albon flying at the moment. Carlos Sainz at least getting some soft tyre running with 6 minutes on the clock. but definitely not as quick. We've had Alex Albon out on these fresh soft tyres for a while now. 5 laps for a soft tyre. You're not going to go any quicker. Doing some different kind of running, I'd assume. Currently, the predictions are at a full vote. 75% chance of McLaren being fastest, 25% chance of Mercedes being fastest. Mercedes currently P5 and P9 in the order. P2 and 3 for McLaren. The Mercedes car should be more suitable here in Silverstone compared to Austria. But I think McLaren are going to be a bit too quick. And I think Ferrari right now are quite happy with the changes that they brought in Austria. So I think Ferrari are definitely looking quite quick. It is only FP1 and we're just under the first hour now of driving. So still a long way to go in this weekend. But momentum can be a big thing in Formula 1, and right now, Ferrari have that. We've just seen Fernando Alonso go around the circuit a little bit. In Sector 1, they were absolutely fighting the wheel, wrestling the car through the sector. Did not look fun at all. Once again, still just wrestling that car is Fernando Alonso. Looking like they're having a terrible time with that car. 6 seconds off. They're doing a different kind of run, but they're all over the place. I have a feeling that we're going to have a very, very frustrated Fernando Alonso interview at the end of today, or at least from FP1 to FP2. It does not look enjoyable at all. Just going through a corner and then flicking the wheel on the exit of the corner just to try and keep it in a straight line. Absolutely brutal right now. Carlos Sainz talking to his engineers about a front wing adjustment, I think, or at least a flap adjustment on one of the wings. It's going to try and help them find a bit more performance to catch up to their teammate who's currently in the top 10. And they'll be looking to try and score points. Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz both said in interviews that they would hope to be the top of the best of the rest, the top of the midfield, fighting alongside Aston Martin, who have made some improvements. The final runnings, the final laps are coming around now, and a few drivers will be making sure they're on a tyre that they would like to try and do some race start testing on. We'll see who's going to end up starting on what tyre. But right now, a few more laps to go until that is the case. Likely no improvements, but right now everybody is out on track. Everybody is out on track. Hamilton leads the way and is likely to finish the session on top. We also didn't even mention the livery changes this weekend. McLaren and Mercedes having differences. Mercedes running a red tint on the back end of the Mercedes symbols, the little stars, the arrows I should call them really, and then McLaren running their chrome livery as well, as they do for the British Grand Prix. They have done for the last few years. It would be it's a shame that they don't run it for a little bit longer in the season, but it is what it is. We always look forward to it, to see something special. Hamilton, 26.892, currently sitting in the dirty air of George Russell, trying to get some running maybe. They know that this circuit is going to be a very good race circuit, so they want to sit behind either that or they're doing some different simulations and they want to just try and overtake George Russell. George Russell doesn't defend the position into Stowe, and they allow Hamilton to go through and continue their run with 1 minute and 20 seconds on the clock. Lando Norris into turn 6. Just a little bit far from the apex, but pretty close to it at least. Looking fairly smooth up until the exit. They got incredibly close to the gravel at turn 8. They did go to the gravel at turn 7, I should say that actually is. So chucking some around a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't affect anybody negatively with any dust. Less than a minute on the clock now. And again, I don't think we'll see any changes, although we've got Carlos Sainz improving in the middle sector, who is going to be the only one who would try and improve here. What are they going to do? And they go just ahead of Lindblad, promoting themselves 1 position ahead and pretty much exactly the same lap time. A similar lap time on some older tyres. A good idea of what's going to happen. There's the checkered flag. And there's Alonso taking it first. And we see the other cars come through. A bit of traffic in the final sector of the circuit as all the cars are getting nice and close together doing their runs. And there is Hamilton crossing the line. As they finish, nobody improving. We'll give it a few more seconds until we go through the order just to confirm. We had some good running there at the end. Hamilton chasing down Russell, his old teammate. Now, in 2 rival teams that fought fiercely in 2017 and 18 for the title. Brilliant battle that was. That's Max Verstappen wrestling the car as well. That's Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen that we've been witnessing this session, just absolutely fighting the car like it's not even a car. It's really, really frustrating to watch, that's for sure. Hopefully they can get that sorted for later on in the week. And as we see a few more cars go across the line, we will not see any more improvements, but we'll hopefully see some practice starts. We've actually got Lindblad who goes immediately into the pit lane. They'll not do a practice start. They don't need to, of course, themselves as a driver. I'm surprised that they didn't try and do it for data purposes, but I guess they don't want to. Aaron will get to do it though, as they will go around and try and look for a practice start. We've had Hamilton taking the top spot in FP1, a 26.892 here. And it is Lando Norris in P2, followed by his teammate, closely behind Oscar Piastri, just over a tenth away. All top 3 being on the medium tyres at the end of the session just there. Leclerc, P4, as they are 2 tenths behind their teammate in the top spot. Then it's Russell, Hadjar with a brilliant session. We've got Albon, the lead Williams, who's done a brilliant job. We've got Lawson. The Racing Bulls are very strong this weekend. Antonelli P9. We've got Verstappen in P10. We've got Alonso, Stroll, Carlos Sainz in P13, who eventually gets a good lap in, at least a better lap in. And then we've got Lindblad, who is in for FP1, replacing Sonoda, a 14th place for them and a 27.9. Not too far away from their teammate in the end, considering it's their first time, 5 tenths away. And then it's Ocon, P15, it's Colapinto, Aaron in P17, and then it's Behrman, Gasly, and Bortoleto. Gasly and Bortoleto both having spins at Copse Corner. Bortoleto having that spin, missing out on their fastest run at the end and being towards the back end of the grid. And they ended up being about 2.5 tenths off their teammate, who is, of course, the rookie FP1 driver. Brilliant stuff there for Paul Aaron to get to P17. Just listening to Paul Aaron and Lindblad, who say thank you very much to their teams for their sessions. And I will say thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you a little bit later on for FP2. And we'll see you tomorrow for FP3 and qualifying for the British Grand Prix weekend. I cannot wait. It's going to be awesome. We might even see some rain tomorrow. But again, we'll just wait for FP2 and get that one done first. Thank you very much once again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.